Took so much effort to get dressed up that I wasn't thinking about the damn quack. Hello everybody, this is Quackcast 294, I think. Is it, Baines? Do you know? This is going to be the horror comedy cast, and we're all in costume. I'm dressed up as Gomez, so I'm Gomez. We have Tance as the beautiful Morticia. So attractive.
Thank you, my darling Gomez.
Oh, so beautiful. I can't resist. We have the...
No, it's turning into that kind of quackcast now.
Isn't it always? We have the magnificently demonic cousin Deathface. Hello, Deathface.
Hi.
And then we have the cousin It. Hello, cousin It. You look fantastic, Baines. We're all in perfect costume as the Quackcast family, as you'd expect. And yeah, we're going to be talking about horror comedy. I'm very sorry that I'm a bit at a loss because we all look so fantastic. So I'm just sort of blown away by how great we look. And I haven't got the notes up yet for the news. So yes, this is Quackcast 294. We're doing the Addams family. We're going to talk about horror and comedy. But first, before we get into any of that, and I'll stop blethering, we've got to introduce the feature. And the feature this week is a feature that I'm doing for Gene Joke, and it's called Miracles. So take it away, Ozone Ocean. Miracles. Hello, this is Ozone Ocean here with Gene Joke's featured comic for the week, which is Miracles, the same comic as the featured music by Mr. Gummoss. Quite a coincidence there. Well, Gene Joke says, I wasn't going to do another 3D comic again so soon, but this one popped out of the blue and screamed, Feature! The Miracles are a team of superheroes formed by a billionaire scientist with altruistic tendencies. The team is unofficially government supported to combat the rise of meta-human threats. The art is 3D renders that are heavily affected, but the end result is bright and bold style that suits a superhero comic down to the ground. The writing seems strong, only 20-odd pages in, and the characters are fairly established, and the groundwork is clearly laid for further mystery and adventure. Please read Miracles by Lex40515. And that was the feature by Gene Joke. Next up we have the music by Gummoss, and the music this week is Miracles! Yay! The music is the same as the comic. Yeah. Magic coincidence, that one. So, Gummoss's music for this week is the same as the feature, as I just said. The sound is dramatic, urgent, exciting, and classical. It's action music. Something is going to happen, unless we stop it in time. So, take it away, Gummoss. And that was Gunwallace. Beautiful. Beautiful. Just like my darling Morticia.
Thank you.
So, we're going to be talking about horror and comedy. Cousin It, could you tell us about horror comedy, please?
Well, oh, hello. Oh, I'm sorry. Throat.
Finally, your throat cleared up, our dear cousin.
And I ended up, I believe in the movie, I ended up marrying the I was going to say I married the two-headed woman, but that's not true. He married the villain lady. But anyway, that doesn't matter. That's not relevant. However, The Addams Family was a horror comedy, the movie at least. The show, I dare say, was just a comedy, really. A little bit of window dressing horror. But, so yeah, horror and comedy, they, like, really... let's see, how do I start here? There's a lot to say about it, really, but...
You did
a great
a whole
genre.
post about it.
I know, I did. Yeah, I'm just thinking about how to... where to start the conversation. And I have all this hair in my mouth.
Well, we could talk about The Burbs, which we did last week, which is a good primer into horror comedy.
Yeah, that's true. So The Burbs we did last week, it had like a lot of the horror elements, like the emotional, like sort of played straight, shot straight, like a horror or like a thriller movie, like a Rear Window type thing or whatever, with lots of comedy, lots of character comedy in it. So that movie is a very good blend, definitely leaning more towards a comedy. But it's, I don't know, they go together well, I think. Like horror and comedy are sort of natural, like a natural fit together. And as separate genres, they're very similar. We could kind of talk about that if you guys want. Like they have sort of emotional things in common, I think, or sort of, you know, they're kind of opposite sides of the same coin in a sense. At least that's my feeling about it. And
what are your favorite horror comedies out of all of them?
Yeah, should we go into that later?
All right. We can introduce the idea then. So, as you say, there's a similar emotional kinds of setups in often comedies. They have in comedies they build up really silly kind of, well, not silly, but they build up these awkward kind of situations, and the tension builds and the tension builds, like a misunderstanding or something like that, don't they? That's a very common thing. And then it's building up, and you feel so cringy, and you know the tension's about to break, and it breaks, and they pretend to break the tension, or they pretend to do a reveal or something like that, and you think something awkward is going to happen, and the character gets saved from that at the last minute. And horror often follows those same kind of things, doesn't it? It sort of builds up tension, and then you get a jump scare, and it's, you know, just a cat or something like that. So they're both... Yeah,
there's definitely something about the tension and the, you know, worrying about what's going to happen, or then the comedic tension on the other side. And then, you know, the release of either the laugh or the scary moment. They kind of work the same way, I think. You know, I don't have this, you know, don't quote me on that. I don't have really science behind it, but it's just sort of a strong feeling that they feel, in a weird way, feel like the same.
They do, and often it crosses over because... I'll go on, Tons.
I think that they are both really, like in the bottom line, they are both based on human misery, in a sense. So
they are.
In a way, yeah.
I mean, you can't have a comedy without, you know, having something nasty, in a sense, happen to the characters in the situation. And of course, horror is about nastiness in general. So I think that this is the common ground from where they both sprout, and they cause emotional engagement more than anything. So
that's great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's very true. Yeah, because as Woody Allen says, tragedy is when I cut my finger and it bleeds. Comedy is when you fall into an open sewer and die.
I thought you were going to go with, like, if it bends, it's comedy. If it breaks, it's not.
Yeah.
Tragedy plus time, like all that stuff that Alan Alda says in that Woody Allen movie. I don't think Woody Allen means that seriously, but everybody quotes him on that now for some reason. That's real. Although the character was supposed to be saying things that made no sense, but
It's pithy.
anyway, like, I also think comedy is like where the idea started was like putting comedy in a scary movie is it almost always like the jokes don't have to be that funny. Like I remember noticing at one point a movie I'd seen many times or several movies I'd seen many times where like there was like humor in it, but the humor actually wasn't that funny. The jokes weren't that funny, but it worked. Like you laughed when you saw it because of the tension and release kind of principle, you know? It's like you were just ready for that. You're ready for a joke or or whatever to release tension.
Yeah, you need it basically to be able to handle what is coming and everything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could have the cat jump beside you in the window kind of thing or whatever, but you can't do that all the time. You know, in a horror movie, the false jump scare or whatever. That can sort of ruin the movie in a way, like if you have that release of tension in that way. But to kind of go back and forth, like The Burbs does so well, like back and forth between a comedic scene and a horror scene, and then the two are kind of combined because the characters are kind of funny. It's done really well in that movie. It's done really well in Shaun of the Dead. I think I was talking about it with some friends actually last night, and because I knew we'd be doing this, and sort of saying that, wow, this hair is really distracting. It's hard to think. So
now we know why he cannot actually talk.
That's why he's literally gibberish, because he can't think of what to say. He's got hair in his eyes. And up his nose. Oh, geez, man. I'm sorry. But, oh, my God.
You're going perfect. Keep on. You're fine.
But stuff where it's, like, legitimately scary and legitimately funny is a lot more rare. There's some examples. I don't know a lot of horror comics. I'll have to stick with movies personally, but Return of the Living Dead, I think, is maybe Reanimator or let's say Return of the Living Dead because I like that movie better. But it's like legitimately you fear for the characters. It's legitimately scary at points, and it's also legitimately funny. Like kind of mixed together in a perfect way. Like Reanimator is kind of sort of the same, but Return of the Living Dead, or like a lot of Sam Raimi movies, like Drag Me to Hell or Evil Dead 2, say, is sort of that perfect balance of like it's scary, it's funny, and sometimes it's both at the same time. You know?
Maybe a bit of well, I don't know for a perfect balance, but From Dusk Till Dawn, maybe. Well.
Oh, yeah. Because it goes like... There's a little bit of a wink, as they say, at the audience as that movie's going on. Like, and there's like high tension and like scary stuff, consequences and all that. But it's silly in a dark way and fun.
That's very true, yeah. So that
one hilarious
is absolutely crazy. Sex Machine is one of the funniest.
I was just thinking, that Tom Savini plays that character, the dude with the gun.
The dick gun.
Dick gun. Yeah.
That is fantastic. But a lot of horror movies become funny just because they're so crazy. Even though it's unintentional, you find them...
Oh, yeah, well, that's another thing, the unintentionally funny. Yeah, exactly.
Too much blood, more blood that could ever fit in a human body is splattered about. And when you realise that, you think, this is hilarious. And you just can't help yourself from laughing every time you see it then. Say...
I think from the point that it becomes a cartoon, it stops being scary in a sense.
That's right. It becomes too horrific to take seriously. So then it switches to comedy. That's what I find with me anyway. You know, because you can only take so much horror before it just becomes... that gets shut off and you start thinking, hang on, this is completely ridiculous. I don't know. Maybe I'm alone in that.
Yeah.
Does anyone else laugh at horror movies?
Well, I haven't seen that many, so I don't remember myself actually laughing at one. Oh, well, okay, maybe I laughed at like, I remember there were some elements, some moments in Dead Snow, especially Dead Snow 2.
Yeah, well, the
Well,
whole setup is hilarious. If Dead Snow, no,
Yeah, that's a horror comedy.
coming back
Yeah.
from the dead. That is,
Yeah. So there were some setups and some, especially in the second one, the poor zombie that gets reanimated over and over again, and every time he's worse off in the way his motor coordination and stuff. And somehow he's the last one to survive, trying to stay walking in a sense. So he was a running joke in the entire movie. I like joke. Yeah.
well, say things like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or at least the sequels, they just get so crazy and silly. You know, they've got this whole like family who are bizarre and they live in this junkyard with, you know, lights and all these kind of like contraptions and things like this, and you think, no, no family could ever have built all this, especially not that family. So that is just
like, how did they manage to? Like, they can barely manage to get through dinner. Like, how did they?
They can barely talk.
I don't remember the first one having contraptions.
Well,
that was more
just
just
third or something. I don't know. One of the sequels. But
I actually got that movie recently, but I only watched the beginning. It's really good and holds up. But I remember that dinner scene being so long. Once they're in the house, I don't remember the contraptions or what it was like. But yeah, you're probably right. It had the sliding steel door and a couple of hooks.
yeah. Down on the farm, man.
Yeah. Part 2, definitely. It's like got that gigantic maze that they end up running through at the end.
That's the
huge
thing,
underground series of tunnels, and that's an amazing.
That's it. Yeah, it becomes
incredible effect.
Becomes crazy and silly. And you say you're watching these, you know, the classic kids at summer camp. Well, they're not at proper summer camp. You know, they've gone to stay at the abandoned summer camp and they're getting killed off one by one. And that becomes absolutely hilarious because you know the formula. And, you know, oh, don't go off and have sex, you know, by yourselves. Oh, no, you're going to get killed. And that's hilarious because, you know, people follow the formula and they get killed, or they turn it around and, you know, attack the other guy. And then that was made fun of in later things. The whole thing spoofed itself, and then you have things like Scream and all that play with the genre and the tropes.
We used to laugh really hard. Like the early. Oh, sorry, Tansy. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
The early Friday the 13th. I remember watching them with my brother as a kid, like renting them all, and very formulaic, played straight. At least most of the series, like they're played seriously, and sometimes not with great acting and stuff like that. But what always made us laugh was how, you know, Jason would kill everyone easily and be like the sort of in control of everything until the final girl. And then she's easily able to like kick him over, kick him in the balls. He's slipping as he runs around the corners. We would always like laugh hysterically when he would like come around the corner and slip. It's like, how did this moron manage to kill like 15 people up to now, you know? He can't even walk.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
But it was great.
I just also, now that you mention it, another one that did make me laugh, and I don't usually laugh at horror movies, is Leprechaun.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got a dwarf in a mask.
I kept laughing. Like, you couldn't stop at this thing.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Where did he go?
Or say Chucky, the very idea. Initially, people find it scary because it's a little cute kid's doll. Well, it's not really cute, but it's a little cute a kid's doll, and it's murderous and it's doing all these awful things. But when you stop to realize, hey, this is a tiny little doll attacking people, and then it becomes hilarious. So horror is often never very far from comedy. It's just like a little tiny hymen separating.
What always disturbs me about Chucky is, and this isn't horror, but like, I've got sensitive ankles. Like, if anything gets near my ankles, I freak out. So I imagine like a little doll like that would just like go like beat the shit out of your feet because that's what he could reach. And that's what makes me hate it. Like, no, anything else, just not my ankles, no.
Little ankle biter, you little shit.
Ah!
No, the way to deal with
Taking
that...
a knife to your Achilles tendon.
Because you are Achilles reborn, yeah, there's that. That's that problem. But the way I dealt with...
Fabulous.
Little yappy dogs and things that used to attack my legs. Oh, and naughty cats that used to attack my ankles. Just wear boots and you're fine. Big stompy boots. Nothing can happen.
I usually do.
Wear them in the shower.
Then these silly animals go and attack you, and they can't do anything. You're safe. You see, Chucky would have been defeated by someone in boots. It would have been fine. They would have kicked the crap out of the little bastard.
Cut them out the window.
Exactly.
You'd still come back, though. You'd still somehow, some way,
which makes it so
for
funny because
yet another sequel.
How can a little doll, like, even... He's got tiny little legs. How can he walk fast enough to catch up to people? I mean...
It's voodoo! You're not supposed to question it, Oz!
Which
Stop
makes
thinking
it
when you watch movies.
funny. It's hilarious. Everything about, horror is just that much... That close to comedy. I mean, the original zombies that were so slow... and bits kept falling off them. Because you'd never ever be caught by those zombies. The old magical zombies. Because they were just always... So, it's hilarious that anyone would ever get caught by them. The Bela Lugosi style of Dracula, that was, of course, lampooned with Grandpa in The Munsters. He's always walking around in Hungarian evening dress, with the medal around his neck and his cape and his... a little bow tie and everything, and it's just so silly. Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is meant to be a horror, is one of the funniest films ever. Hey, that's the way I look like Ed Wood.
The one thing that would be terrifying in a slow walking zombie, assuming that you can't kill it, like stop it, okay, which usually you can, by hitting it in the head or whatever, would be the fact that it keeps coming and, you can outrun it, but you have to keep outrunning it because it keeps coming after you, which is basically, I think it's the plot, not with zombies, but it's the plot with this movie called It Follows. I haven't seen it, but the idea is that something is coming after you. It's coming after you slowly, but it will never stop. You have to be continuously on the run.
That's a pretty good
until
movie.
You are,
very good movie.
Well, with zombies, of course, the elephant. Well, it's not even the elephant. The obvious thing is you just dig a trap. You dig a moat, and the thing would fall down and go splat. And you'd be safe. Because it's so slow.
But would you never ever leave the moat? That's the scary thing.
Would be in the moat. Yeah, well,
no, I know. What I'm saying is you would never be able to leave the protection of the moat then.
No, you wouldn't even have to do that. You just dig a pit trap. And because the zombie's so dumb, it'll just walk in and then you bury it and you're fine.
Yeah, but if you've got, if everybody else is if we're taking... a Last Stand scenario, as a lot of zombie movies are. it's the horror comes in, not that there's one after you. That's
Exactly.
the initial thing. But the horror isn't, there's a lot of them. And they're coming from all directions.
Yeah, how are you going to find time to dig a moat?
Because they're so
Yeah.
slow.
1,000.
And then you have to
Yeah,
surround
that's
yourself with the moat too, and you can't leave the moat or else you'll be fucked up.
No, well, there's like the thing with horror is that there is like you have to suspend a lot of disbelief in order to make it work, which is, you know, that's good. But once you break out of that, then you realize how ridiculous it is, because you could never have a whole lot of zombies after you, because they'd get, I don't know, start to rot and things would fall off and they would slow down and then they would just die, so they wouldn't last long enough, you know, because dead bodies can't hold together. So, but even with a great bunch of them, there's no brain in them, you know, they can't think, they can't plot, they can't plan. So you can like run rings around them, you can make traps and do all sorts of crap, and they wouldn't be able to do anything about it.
And if you take kind of the average zombie, maybe, but there are some stories. This isn't a movie, but it's a comic. And isn't it funny that for a second I'm like, should I be talking about comics on this cast? And like, we're a comic cast.
Definitely, yeah.
One of there's a comic that I loved
like a zombie.
back in the day. Back in the day called Dead World. And actually, unfortunately, one of the guys who kind of spawned it died a few days ago. Gary Reed. He was a great dude.
Sure he's dead.
I did a few projects for him. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you knew?
That's incredible.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't know him, but I worked on a few projects for him. And if I hadn't met him, I wouldn't have a lot of friends. I not met him, but actually read Dead World. I wouldn't have a lot of friends that I have now because we all kind of gravitated together through it. But anyway, Dead World. What Dead World does is because there's so many different ways you could spawn a zombie apocalypse, and what their drug of choice was have it be like a supernatural thing, like the gates of hell are opening up kind of thing. And so you would have kind of your lame, shambling zombies arted by Vince Locke, the guy who came to do the Cannibal Corpse covers. So they look really cool, all these zombies. But they would also have intelligent zombies who were actually these demons who took these bodies and stuff like that. And so in that sort of storyline, you do have sentient zombies. And that's why they're kind of taking over the world, and they can just body hop if they need to. So, or preserve the rotting body with some kind of magic. I don't know, but it's like you can really. I know there's like these base, as a popular culture phenomenon, these kind of base rules that we have, but I like when people don't necessarily adhere to those rules. You know what I mean? We get so used to the same thing all the time. Shoot them in the head or this or that. And it's like, no, like this is you can't do it with this set, you know? So where was I going with that? I can't remember. I was telling Oz he was wrong, like I always do. And then I went into this thing. Yeah. So,
but you were saying that this comic Dead World does that kind of thing where there's an intelligence.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. So you do have exceptions, of course, which Oz, you weren't arguing at all that there aren't exceptions, but I just think that a moat could still be treacherous in that if you had a large horde. Oh, no, I remember what brought this up. Okay, so you were talking about, you know, when you shed reality and think about, you know, eventually the zombies rot and stuff like that. And if you really shed reality, you say the zombies shouldn't be there in the first place because they're fucking dead. But so it's like, how far are you willing to shed a reality in order to create something? What can we move on? How did we even?
Well, I love the undead and the horror comedy in Creep Show. The first movie.
Oh yeah, that was
Creep
fun.
Show 2, I think, also had a good story in it. I don't remember those. I just remember the raft episode, or the raft short. But the other one was kind of like, you know, humorous characters and kind of snarky, over-the-top main characters, and then over-the-top, terrifying, unstoppable undead in the end.
I don't know. The only thing I remember is the Crypt Keeper. So.
Say that again?
The Crypt Keeper.
Yeah. That's the only thing I...
Which, the Crypt Keeper and that show, that was always a mixture of horror and comedy. And that's what made it so effective. Because it was just so wacky, but also so evil.
Or do you mean it was so axy? Him and his incredible puns.
Yeah.
It was just so weird. And that reminds me of, say, clowns are one of the ultimate horror things now.
Ooh.
And they're meant to be funny.
Yeah.
They're not funny.
They are in fashion as well lately.
Yes. They're in the news lately, scary clowns are.
Exactly. They've replaced zombies as the new demon. They're the new Chupacabra. Evil clowns.
Oh, you know who I think of when you mentioned the Crypt Keeper, which is an excellent, funny, scary character. Because I remember being a little girl, and Dad and I would watch Tales from the Crypt together, and it'd always be when we're about to go to sleep, so the lights would be off and everything, and I would cover my eyes a little bit when I knew that he was going to pop up so I wouldn't get scared. But I loved him at the same time. I loved the Crypt Keeper, and other people from the time did, a lot of kids, because he is also fun. And so then my thoughts segue to someone who's very kind of similar in that regard is Beetlejuice.
Oh, yeah, Beetlejuice is hilarious.
Amazing.
It did get scary though towards the end, like when the chips started to fall, and we went towards the end of the movie, and he was trying to take over the house and the family and marry Winona Ryder and everything. That was starting to get. Actually, it was crossing over from comedy towards the horror more.
Well, I even remember a few scenes too that earlier in the movie, because you're right, the rest of the movie is very much there's an eerie presence about it, but I remember one of the scenes that stayed with me, God, for a long time. It was another part that I had to close my eyes, was when the guys that are moving into the house, one of them opens the closet and Barbara's in there. She's got her long black curly hair, which always scared the hell out of me for some reason when I was a kid. Long black curly hair, and she rips her face off, and but then it's once again, of course, it's funny again because the guy doesn't see her and just shuts the door. But that part, man, like it had, like, it wasn't a very scary movie, but the parts that were scary were like they hit you deep, man. Like. Oh, it was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that worked really well. Say when they put the family, they stretched their faces out really weird, like they pulled their noses down so their eye holes are huge. And pressed out the back of their head. That was freaky.
That was creepy too. And if you think about the effects used too, like it wasn't just the sight of it happening, but like the sound effects were kind of funny, but at the same time they were creepy because that like a human shouldn't be making that noise, shouldn't be able to contort themselves in that way. And then the lighting too played a big part in that movie. I think of when they opened the door for the first time and there's that eerie kind of green glow and you really feel that you're going into another dimension,
Yeah.
And also, one of the things that used to scare me as a child, for some reason, was the moment where Beetlejuice tries to scare Winona Ryder's character. I don't remember her name.
Yeah.
See him from the back, and his face explodes into some kind of snaky thing that she screams to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
But as a kid, I was always very scared because my imagination filled in what that thing probably was, and it really scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And I still remember it as a postcard in my head. That particular moment.
Yeah. Very memorable. Yeah, I haven't seen that movie.
Not only just, faces or all these things, but that was that scared me more because I didn't see it. Although I was thankful I didn't. But yeah.
And that was a comedy. That was a pure comedy. So.
It was, I think it was definitely supposed to be more of a comedy than a horror. Although, it's definitely in between. Yeah. That definitely has those scary moments.
What about
the one that I didn't like, but it was more committed. It was more committed to being a comedy. It wasn't horror, I think, at all. But it played with the horror tropes. Was Young Frankenstein. I really liked that one. And it really played with all the tropes and everything. And of course, it didn't scare you at all. But
no, it wasn't scary, but it definitely had that feeling.
Yeah, which is that had, of course, Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, and they had all comedians, didn't they, playing the roles? The guy with the big poppy eyes, I can't remember his name, famous British comedian, Gene Wilder, funny people.
Yeah,
it was. I haven't seen the whole thing. What about one of my favorite was it The Evil Dead 3, I think? Army of Darkness.
Army of Darkness? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just abandoned any semblance of horror from the first two movies and just went to pure comedy, really. There's a couple of moments in there where it's a bit more horrorish, like in the very beginning, I think, where the Deadite... he's in the shopping centre and just working as a cashier, and the Deadites come or something.
That's the end, actually.
That's the end, yeah.
But yeah,
and also in the little versions of him trying to attack him.
Don't talk about that to Pitface. She's scared of her ankles.
There's little ankle biters.
Oh no!
Tiny little pit faces. You don't want that stabbing at you.
That's bizarre.
Tremors, one of my favorite movies.
Man, like that. I don't like that idea.
Yeah, Tremors. That is a very good horror comedy. That is fantastic. That's like
played straight, and like the characters are funny. A lot of great dialogue and stuff like that. But you definitely fear for them. Like there's stakes, so the horror part of it works.
Oh, yeah. And it's thrilling as hell, too. I mean, because there's always, it's not something where the monster has to constantly be there in order to be scary. It's the fact that, I guess a lot of horror is like that, but that you don't know where it is. Mm-hmm. And there's really nothing safe. It's almost personifies that moat conundrum that me and Oz were talking about earlier. Because the people, because they're stuck in this one space, and they can only be safe in this one space off the ground because they're surrounded by desert otherwise, and they'll get taken. But you can't feasibly live your whole life in that one space. So what do?
And they learn the rules of their world, which makes it... They have to get to know the rules that work with the horror monster. So in that world, it's staying on rock. You have to stay on rock, and anything that makes sound is going to attract these monsters, like the sandworms in Dune. So, like radios or running engines and all that kind of thing, and that helps them defeat the monsters in the end because they know the rules. But they have to stick to the rules in order to survive and be part of the world. So that's the horror aspect. Because good horror usually has to have rules in order to sort of be, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you don't obey
you pretty
the
much.
rules you have made. Yeah, it stops being scary anymore.
Another thing about Tremors that did make it so scary was before they're able to use those things to their advantage, the car engines and stuff. I remember one of the scariest times during the movie, well, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but that I can remember, is when the guy in the truck gets eaten, because then you kind of realize that, because your first thought is like, all right, well, obviously if you get in a car and drive away, these things shouldn't be able to get you. But no, even in a big truck, you're not safe. They'll take the truck, So it's just really, it just makes it all the places where, the safe places just diminish all the more, That was genius.
Yeah.
The nice old couple, husband and wife, got taken as well. And,
in the station wagon.
Yeah.
Which
that's what it was, wasn't it? The station wagon.
Yeah.
And those people are normally immune from the disaster. The nice old couples don't get eaten. It's young, sexy couples.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, actually. Because once again, that diminishes the safety even more. These worms don't give a fuck if you're, young or old or anything. They don't adhere to that movie trope. So what other tropes won't they adhere to? And that makes the audience feel unsafe, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's unsettling. Yeah. Where are the limits? It was a damn good movie, all up. The sequels weren't always quite as good, but they were pretty good. I mean, the first sequel is almost as good as the first movie, and they changed the rules there, so the graboids are no longer worms. They become these little walking emu kind of things with giant feet, and with heat sensors on their heads. And there's some horrific kind of scenes of there. I think there was a guy trying to climb through a window to get away, and his backside gets eaten, so he's just skeleton on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
Horrible. But it's a funny movie, and the comedy comes through, with the guy from Family Ties with his little mustache and all that. He has these enormous guns and all. He's a crazy gun freak. So that starts to add a hell of a lot of humour when he comes in. So that's a good one. The third one, I couldn't stand the third one, because then they changed the rules too much. So you no longer got these little walking graboids or snaky ones. Now they can fly and shoot fire and all this kind of crap. And
okay,
it gets away from all the rules.
Fire too?
Hey,
yeah.
They
shoot fire also. Wow, I haven't seen it. But.
It goes away from all the rules they established, and it had just bad special effects because it was all CGI, no longer the practical stuff. But the third one goes straight back to ridiculous comedy and horror as well, just like the first movie. You have the graboid things, the big slugs, and they're back in the Old West, so this is where the whole thing started.
Oh, right, yeah.
So before
how was that one?
Oh, I found it great. A lot of people hate it because it's too funny, but I love it because it's so funny and silly and just crazy. It just ramps up the weirdness and the silliness. He has this, the crazy gun guy. I can't remember his name, but he always has these enormous, ridiculous guns, and he has the biggest gun you've ever seen in your life in this movie. It's they call it and it's a real thing. It's called a punt gun.
In the Old West one, you mean?
Yeah. It's called a punt gun, which was an actual shotgun that was made for killing 100 ducks at once. On a lake, you'd row out on your little punt with this enormous shotgun. I think it's a 0 gauge shotgun, which is like this. It's a cannon. And just blow a whole lake full of ducks to Kingdom Come, and then just go and collect them or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, it was used to make a couple of species extinct. That was how powerful this was. And he blows up a graboid with this enormous gun. So it's great for comedy effect. That kind of stuff. It works. It heightens his character to ridiculous lengths. And actually they've how that character's like gun crazy all the way through in the first series, the first movie.
Yeah.
Well, in this one, he's a pacifist and a coward, and this shows his transformation into a gun crazy lunatic. Oh God, I've gotten made everyone bored, I'm sure. You guys haven't seen any of these?
No.
What do you have?
I saw the beginning. I saw part of part 2. I saw part of that Old West one, but I just very briefly at the beginning. I couldn't get into them, but I'll give them another chance.
Watch it all the way through. They're great.
Yeah.
I
mean, the first one's so damn good. Like it's a high bar,
Yeah, you can't expect them to be as good as the. Well, there's no Kevin Bacon in any of them, so.
Right.
What can you do? What can you do?
What are you gonna do? Yeah.
Exactly.
You can't always have Kevin Bacon. That's the point of that. Toxic Avenger, I thought was an awesome movie, and it was scary, and it was also hilarious with the over-the-top evil.
I think it was much more on the over-the-top side than.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't scary. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but when he comes back and he's going after them, I remember being nervous a few times.
Because he's brutal, man. He's like. I remember one of my favorite parts, and it's a part that really makes you realize what the hell you're getting into, is where he full on makes a shake out of some guy's face. You remember that?
Vaguely.
It's so good.
It starts out with him as a nerdy character, the typical prototypical nerd who's like awkward and doesn't know what to do, and dresses.
And
bad.
he's over the top nerdy too. He's like,
yeah. This is a trauma film, so like it's all like funny over the top, like.
Yeah, it's all very cartoon.
Everything to the extreme, and then he's like thrown into toxic waste or something, or tortured to death by these bullies, because bullies in the 1980s were always psychopaths and they killed people.
Yes. Remember when the bullies like run over a kid in their car? Just, like,
yeah. I was just thinking of that part.
Just randomly, and they're like howling with laughter. That's like crazy.
Isn't there like a scene, like it's not like they just run him over too? Don't they like run over his head or something and it like blows up or like something like that? I thought
probably. Yeah,
it's been a minute, man. It's been a minute, but that was.
The one movie I remember that was another one. Now they're starting to surface slowly. That was unintentionally comedic. Is I see your death, especially. I think number 2 was it? I don't remember. It was like that the ways the teenagers died they were more and more cartoons and more ridiculous. So you couldn't really take it seriously, especially because you knew that they were all going to die. So it was basically how is it called? Dragon Slayer, where you want Derek to die just to see, the creative
how it happens. Yeah.
With you die. I mean, that was the feeling I got from those movies, more than anything, more than the horror, more than the fear, more than the wow, what's going to happen, and things like that.
You're right.
So,
in that when the thing you said about they're going to die anyway, but you watch it to see what ridiculous way they're going to, because the horror movie people the writers, directors, they're not making it so everyone's just dying in a normal way or dying in predictable ways. The other deaths have to be different, and they have to top each other. So someone might get a lawnmower blade spinning through the air and chopping their head off, and someone else might get something even more ridiculous, like some kind of meat hook comes out and yanks someone into the air, or things have to be like random and just crazy and worse and worse.
Yeah, and I don't remember which of the movies it is, but I remember very characteristically like a couple of the deaths were like like these contraptions that one thing that hits into the other and causes a domino effect, like things hit one after the other until they reach to the deadly outcome. And it felt a lot like Wile E. Coyote a roadrunner. Only that the roadrunner was the one getting all the problems. Right? So you couldn't really take it seriously. Like it was. Let's predict
Yes.
what kind of anime is going to drop on the character. Like nobody cares to be scared in any way. So
That's
yeah,
it. That's it. It. Things just become so crazy and silly. It can't be taken seriously. There was these films called Final Destination that I've never seen, but I saw clips of them. And the whole thing was these people are meant to die in a plane crash, and they don't get on the plane, so they don't die. So death has to come and kill them anyway. And so they all die in these weird, unpredictable ways, like someone falls onto the mast of a sail, or logs fly off a car fly off a truck through the front windshield of the car and crush them. But these deaths are so totally silly and crazy that it's hard to take it seriously, because they're crazy deaths. They're not like, oh, this person just gets run over by a car. It's like logs come off a truck and bounce down the road and smash through the front of his car, just insane things.
Yeah.
So it just becomes funny because it's so hyperbolic. It's just so insane, and that's how it has to be. So, yeah.
Just the way it is, kids.
That's it.
Just the way it has to be. I'm sorry.
So, I think when people are doing these horrors, often, they don't want it to be funny. Especially if you're taking it really seriously. So, I suppose a really good horror won't cross over into comedy. It will never go that crazy. But, you can't really control how
you don't
people are
want to
gonna
blow
take
the
it, but-
suspension of disbelief away if you're not trying to do a horror comedy. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're trying to play it straight. But if you play it too straight and serious, that's how you get those unintentional laughs.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember the part from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, back to this, where he's chasing, what's her name, the blonde chick around the house. And that's a tense part, being chased by a chainsaw. And it's, especially if you're someone who tends to kind of put yourself in a character's place, and that also makes a big difference whether you find something, what kind of comedy are you attracted to. But anyway, that part where he's chasing her and she runs up the stairs and she turns around, she screams or something, and it for that split second, the scream scares him, like he kind of stumbles back.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Remember that part? And it's so
Yeah.
good because it doesn't shatter the intensity. It's still intense, but it's just like, it makes you think, it almost makes it more real in a sense.
Oh.
And that, like,
It's true, yeah.
it's so unexpected.
Yeah, like in real life, you'd think like that probably would happen, but yeah, you definitely don't expect that in a movie.
I also think that, I actually haven't seen, I don't think I have seen at least the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I think that the more the movie doesn't overkill, like doesn't try too much, and stays a little bit subtle, the scarier and more horrific it is. Like more true to being straight, blunt, and simple in a sense.
Yeah.
In how the sources of the scare are being presented.
Yeah. The movies where things really get less funny are the ones that are more realistic. The less fantasy and the less like a suspension of disbelief you have to do, then it starts to get it more real and more horrific, like those Hostel kind of movies, that kind of torture porn kind of stuff. That's disgusting.
Where there's kind of pretty much no comedy. There could be some character stuff, but it's not kind
even
of nasty. And,
unintentional comedy, It's less
Yeah.
likely for that to have unintentional comedy.
Right.
Yeah, or the others as well, like without the. I mean, it was. I don't know if it is really only a thriller because it gives you this horrific feeling, just playing with shadows more than anything else.
Yeah.
Of course, as long as you don't know what is really going on, but when you watched it for the first time, like I remember it was and I think it still remains, the only movie that has made me scream in a theater.
Oh, wow. Did you?
Yeah.
Which part?
There was one where I actually screamed, but I was glad because everyone else was screaming as well. So it was fun.
Oh, that's good. Was it the part with the old woman?
No, it wasn't. I think it was the part with not the old woman per se, like when it was around there, but I think it was, something with the cupboard, or a closet. I think it was a big closet and it was semi-jump scare and something like that. I don't remember now exactly because, I was too busy screaming, so I don't remember.
I actually screamed. I actually shouted. I won't say screamed, but I was in the theater too with my brother, and there are only like 3 other people both my brothers actually, but then there are only like 3 other people in the theater, and that scene, I think they were in the closet, and the old woman suddenly appears. I like shouted. I was like, "Ah!"
Just like that.
I was the only one who reacted. It was so embarrassing.
Actually, in Ghostbusters. The original Ghostbusters, there's that, when I was little when I first saw it, but there's that one spot in the very beginning where there's the librarian ghost, this very staid looking traditional librarian. She's floating above the floor and she's just looking at old books or something, and then this guy comes up and says, "Excuse me," and she just turns around and she's a skull with her hair flying back, and that's horrific. That scared the shit out of me as a little kid.
Terrifying. Me too. Yeah, never forgot it.
Yeah.
Oh my God! And if the other thing, I didn't scream, but I really wish I could. Was in Pan's Labyrinth, the monster that had its eyes on its palms.
Yes.
Oh, like that. Yeah.
Very creepy.
It's not a jump scare. It never is, and it's like a nope moment. Like you really want to not be there and not watch that.
It's very creepy. Yeah.
Body horror, yeah. That kind of stuff is freaky. It should not be. It should not happen.
The Japanese are very good at body horror. I'm speaking generally, but if you think of a lot of the Japanese movies that have come out and gotten big over here, I don't remember the Japanese names, but like The Ring and God, what are those other ones?
Ringo.
Anyway, Ringo.
Ringo and Jono and Jojo.
That's right. But if you think of the so-called monsters in those movies, and this is kind of off topic because it's not comedy. They're not comedy at all, really.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, there's no comedy.
That body horror, though. It's hard to get any kind of comedy. Well, maybe I won't say that, actually, because then I think of people that. But body horror, I mean, think of why those monsters are so scary. It's the contortions of the body or like that kind of, do I have this right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not a lot of work that you have to put into it, but it's taking the human form and just making it into something that's just bizarre enough,
Yeah. It's very,
it's not right.
Yeah, scary stuff.
They have they have some movies in Japan. I think they are Japanese. They're Asian for sure, where they have subverted this. Like they give you the full scope of the horror, like the contortions and the angles and the music and everything, and then the monster, like just before it is about to jump the character, or if the character hasn't understood the thing because it's like looming behind him or something, and then it just takes a tumble forward, or it crashes on its face because the character moves away like Buster Keaton and it's in air or something like that, and then the moment this happens, the horror spell breaks and it becomes comedy. Like it makes you really laugh because you are very tense and you're waiting for this
Yeah.
To pay off in the horror version, but then it's like it's
Wow, that's cool. That's really cool.
That's a good point. Yeah, and the Japanese, they do, take this to ridiculous lengths, and they do the trauma kind of stuff, and they do ridiculous, body horror into comedy. Like there's this the Robo Geisha movies, I think they're called, where she has a machine gun sticking out her bum, a sword sticking out her bum or something.
Really?
And yeah, it's just mad, And in the end,
or you have what's that move? That trauma movie, Slither, where you have sort of the alien invasion, and the one woman turns into this like giant, like swollen, like I guess blueberry kind of thing. That might have been Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But yeah, she really like turns into like this ball of. It's like very disturbing.
Yeah.
The guy too is kind of transformed into a like hideous thing.
I think there was this Thai, I think either Thai or Filipino film, something like that, where it was really scary. Like 2/3 of the movie in, it kept being very scary. It had this ghost / monster kind of entity that was walking like. More or less like the ghost from Mama.
Oh, yeah.
The ghost from Mama. Okay, so it was that sort of spidery human creepy form. Okay,
yeah.
But in the end, towards the end, when finally traps the, it was only I think following doctors or something like that. The only thing that it wanted was a chiropractor. The only thing that it wanted was someone to actually bend it back into proper shape, and that was it.
Oh,
so,
great, Doc.
Completely.
Thank you.
Yeah. It really it sort of made me laugh. Now it's like a very cold, stupid joke, but the way that they made it,
work for the.
They made the reveal in the sense that it was extremely funny. And in the end, the final scene, however, is that having this experience, the guy meets another contorted ghost and tries to help it, but that one wasn't looking for help and meets him, and that's where it ends.
Wow. I can't believe they stretched that into a whole movie.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, they did.
They did.
That's good, though.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
These sound like fantastic horror comedies that everyone should try out and watch. Thank you guys for being part of Quackcast number 294. I've got the number. The Addams Family costume cast and also horror comedy cast. It's everything. Everything to everyone. Just like me.
I forgot it was supposed to be Addams Family, so I ruined it.
No, your
Nobody
cousin,
knows.
Your cousin.
You are the visiting guy or girl. You're the visiting girl from France.
Yes.
Exactly. Joan of Arc.
A little bit of the Uncle Fester complexion and eyes.
Yeah.
She's from the Uncle Fester's side of the family. That's it.
Yeah, from his
from the special editions reel that was never released, and only we know it because we're such uber fans.
Exactly.
We know it all.
Only the real fans.
Yeah.
These are deep cuts,
Yeah.
man.
Exactly. No one else is getting dressed up like we are. We are the fans. Bugger everyone else. All right. Well, thank you guys for being a part of this Quackcast, and we'll do some video after this. We shall do some video. All right. Oh,
I'm really hungry.
Bye-bye.
Me too, man.
Bye.
Bye. We totally messed.